I'm CK. Tonight we're going to be doing another Frequency Central module. We're going to be doing their Volts Platz. It is at its simplest a CV mixer. At more complicated, it has a lot of clipping and attenuation so you can play with signals as they come in, as they say, take something post VCF and do interesting things with it. So we'll see how it goes. I generally like Frequency Central modules, and this one feels like it's going to be relatively straightforward. Hope you enjoy the video. Here's the box. Frequency Central out of Coventry in the UK. Volts Platz. And I got this from thonk.co.uk, where I buy many of my modules. Even though they're in the UK, they get to me as fast as anything in the US, and I like the quality of their parts and their service. So, nice paper bags, which is excellent, so I can recycle them. Thank you. We'll open this one first. Yep, another Frequency Central sticker. I've got plenty of these if anybody wants to trade. Use 3K3 instead of 5KS resistors. A small change to improve the accuracy of the frequency offsets. Okay. Eurorack power cable. Let's get the... I think I'm going to keep this little note somewhere. I know this is... You're going to think I'm a little compulsive here, but if I don't cut this out, I'm not going to remember it, and then I'll be wondering what the heck is going on. So I just put that over there against my soldering iron station. Now we'll prepare the box for recycling. Let's see what the circuit board and the front panel look like. Tiny circuit board. And here's the front panel. These are pots for 1, 2, 3, and 4. And here is input 1, 2, and this is 3 and 4 are marked as plus 8 volts and minus 8 volts, so that's not typical euroracks, so that will be interesting as we explore that. Inv is probably inverting signal, and then I guess this is the inverted output, and that's the normal output. And then clip, it looks like that's a switch, a couple of LEDs, and this is 1 times 10 times 2. Not sure, that's scaling the input, I think, to maybe overdrive the op amps, but we'll see when we actually get it put together and I actually read the manual, which I haven't done yet. So the board looks good. J.S. Dunn did the PCB, and Rick Holt did the design, which is typical. Those seem to be the people who make Frequency Central run. There's 2 capacitors on the back here, I think. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Circuit board is good quality, through-hole plated, of course. All the components have their values listed on the board, so theoretically you don't need a build guide or you don't need a bill of materials. Double checking. The only challenge with paper is it's not see-through, so you got to make sure you've gotten everything out of the bag through a visual inspection. Now we'll get a parts tray. Dump all this stuff out. Yay! No plastic bags at all. Yay! We don't like plastic bags because they are just useless waste. Our jacks. our pots, eurorack power connector, 3-position switch, 2-position switch, only one op amp, and it's a TL082, not a 072 or 74. Huh, that's interesting. I'm going to look that up and see what the differences are. And if you look on the resistor packs, somebody has conscientiously written the values on there. That's nice of them. Not necessary, but nice. So that's it. It's, again, looks like a relatively simple board. Probably go together pretty quickly. So I'll get the soldering iron heated up and we'll put this thing together. First thing I'm going to look at is see if we've got the 3K3 resistors instead of 5K. Yeah, we do, so I can actually get rid of that note. I don't need it. So I could look at the build guide, but that would take time. I will probably eventually look at the user guide, or maybe not. Get all the resistors out. Huh, interesting. No diodes. No circuit protection. Huh, okay. So I'm going to look on the board for that. I'm going to assume that the board still reflects 5K. Yeah, the board still reflects 5K K6 5600 ohm. So we'll put the 3000 3K3s in there. So resistor time is, as always, on my channel. Pretty boring. So there's not much to talk about as I install resistors. So I will play it back in fast motion and you can watch all the resistors just magically fly onto the board. All the resistors on, and one thing I noticed as I was putting the resistors on, I mentioned that this TL084 op amp is not what I was actually expecting, and the board is actually marked for a TL072, which is what I would normally expect. So again, I don't know what the difference for the 084 is, but it must have a nicer clip response that the Frequency Central folks said, we want to use this. Okay, now we're going to do the caps. We're going to do the disc caps first, because the electrolytics, as I said, appear to go on the back, and I'm not going to put them on the back until I put the power connector on. So I won't have any worries about bending them over or damaging them some other way. Where is this? There it goes. So that's the two disc caps. Now, electronically, we're pretty much out of parts. I'll go ahead and put the socket on the board. And again, the typical way I put IC sockets on is I will rest the board on my pinky, which is holding the socket, and this is acting. Rest my pinky on the socket, solder one leg, let it cool, pick everything up, take a look at it, see whether it's completely flat, and it is, so we can solder the rest. One other thing, and this is something I've confused myself with on Frequency Central boards a lot, or not a lot, but in the past. Frequency Central includes a lot of test points on their PCB design, which is useful for them and for me if I wanted to futz around with that. But the challenge is sometimes I try to stick resistor leads in to a test point instead of into the solder point that they are intended to be in. So you just got to be careful. Don't put components in the test points. Power connector. Now they don't choose to use shrouded power connectors with the little keyway to ensure you're inserting your cable correctly. I'm kind of neutral on that. I think it's a good idea for folks who aren't necessarily completely electrical savvy, but in general the eurorack community is pretty capable of understanding why the cable has to go the way it has to go. Though I will say, and again, it's not something I do, if you're making a change on a dark stage or in a club with bad lighting, that can make it a little error prone even for the most electronically savvy person. So I prefer shrouded power connectors, but it's not a deal breaker or a bad thing in any particular way. Now we've got the electrolytics, and I will put them on now that I've got the power connector in it. Polarity matters, of course, and the board is marked very clearly as to which pad is positive and which is negative. And they're even using the somewhat common convention of using a square pad for the positive leg. It's not, yep, I put solder over there for. It's not 100% accepted in PCB board layout, software, or machinery, but where it gets goofy is diodes. Diodes, I've seen the square pad on the cathode and I've seen the square pad on the anode. I don't trust them for diodes. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put all the components in their places, pre-solder, and before I do that I've got to take all the panel nuts off all the components. So we'll do that again in fast motion. So everything's in place, and I put the op amp in because I don't think I'm going to take the panel back off after I put this on. You might have noticed I soldered one leg on this jack and one leg on this pot, so when I drop everything on, those are the center parts, the stabilizing parts. Now one thing that you do have to be careful of if you're not paying attention to build guide like I wasn't, is, that's interesting, is this not going down? Come on guys, it's like these holes aren't drilled out enough. There we go. There we go, now we're down. You do have to make sure that you put the 2-position switch here and the 3-position switch here. Not something that's hard to do, just something you got to remember to do. So I'm going to put this panel nut on the one jack I had soldered to get everything snug all the way up. I forgot there was no panel nut on these pots, so I'm going to use the the switch instead for holding it down, and that's without it being soldered, and that's because these switches are very tightly in their holes on the board, so I don't worry about pulling it up. I'm also not going to tighten it all that much, barely past finger tight, just enough to stabilize the board. And then I'll poke the two LEDs through in little places where they're supposed to go. Look at that. That's not going straight, it's angled. So the leads will kind of bend a little bit as you push it forward. The other one is a relatively straight throw, though that too is a little bit at an angle. Huh, that's interesting. Not bad or good, just interesting. But you will need a pokey thing or something to push them on through. Okay, now I'm going to solder up all the front panel connections, and again we'll go back into fast replay. So that's it. That's the assembly. As I mentioned, it was going to be pretty quick. I think it'll take an experienced builder about 20 minutes to build this up. 20 minutes, half hour. It took me a little longer because I was talking, but it's a very quick build. Now I'll go ahead and put all the panel nuts on, and as you'll notice, I never put the washers on. If there are washers supplied, that's just me. I don't find that they're valuable mechanically in a situation like this, so I don't bother. Now before we're all done, do one more pass over the back to make sure all the solder connections are, number 1, done, number 2, good quality, number 3, no bridging or shorting. And it all looks good. We'll put the cable on correctly with the red stripe by the minus 12 volt indication. And that's it. That's the front, side, back, other side, top, and bottom. All the pots move freely and cleanly. Switches are all working. Jacks are all good, so it's ready to go in the test rack. Let's see how this thing does. So we're in the rack. I'm going to be putting Bafaco even VCO in to start, and then we'll go out to the little mini amp. I'll follow up by adding the Duskwork VCO as the number 2 input once we've played around a little bit. On the oscilloscope, the yellow line will be the original signal, the magenta line will be the post Volts Platz signal. So I'm going to power it up. Let's see if anything catches on fire. Nothing caught on fire. Let's get the scope up. I really should put them on different power connectors, but I'm too lazy to do that. So right now we're already coming out, the even VCO is already operating, so we should get a signal. Yeah, we're getting a signal. Let me adjust this. So again, the yellow is the signal coming directly out of the even VCO oscillator. Let me turn up the, I'll turn up the amp a little bit. Number 1 on the mixer is all the way down so far, hence the magenta line is flat. We'll start bringing it up. So that's simple. I'm going to make this a sine instead of that even. Okay, so that's pretty much normal. Let's see if we can do something interesting here. I don't know what that just did, if anything. Now if you look on the scope, you'll notice that the purple has been clipped top and bottom, and that's when we did the scale change. If I go, that's on 2x right now. If I go to 10x, you can see it flattens it out and extends it even more. So that's interesting. So let me see if I can get you an audio difference. So that's the difference right now going through the mix. That's not going through the mix. I don't know if you can sense that, but that's a little rounder. Definitely a little harsher with the clipping on. Now clipping's back off, but we can still overdrive the signal. And then right there, we've dropped it back to normal. So halfway up keeps the signal pretty much undistorted. If we go further than that, you can see it flattens out. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put it in the invert slot. Now you can see that the two waves are different phase from each other. There's no audible difference for that, but if you took this output from the VCO and this output from the Volts Platz and put them both through an amp, you would hear it. I only have 2 squid cables, so I can't do that right now. Yeah, I can't do that right now. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the output from the Duskworks VCO and put that in 2. And I got to give that some CV. Hold on a second, I'm sorry, I don't have that hooked up to a volt. Okay, so that should be good now. Now we'll bring that oscillator in. You can see the output line dancing. I'm not getting a lot of output here. So see what that's doing? On the duskwork is currently putting out a nice saw wave, but I mix in the even VCO, and that's what it does. Let's play around with that a little bit. Remember, we're still coming out inverted. That's 10 times, 2 times normal. I'm going to go back into the normal output again. Actually, I'm going to try one other thing. I'm going to actually take the wave, both waves from the even VCO. I'm going to combine the sine wave with the square wave in the mixer here and see what happens there. Now I've got the two. I've got the normal from the even VCO combined with a saw wave. And you can see what mixing various degrees of each are doing to the signal. So that's what it does. As you can see, the combinations and the ability to change how much the multiplier is for signal strength is kind of fun. The only thing I don't see that I kind of would like is master output level, because I've already seen that I can't get the same amplitude necessarily out of the two inputs when I was using this Duskworks, and it wasn't putting out as much signal voltage as the even VCO. I can't do what I would often do with a mixer, which is bring that all the way up and get that one about equal, and then have another op-amp in there that allows me to control the master volume out. I'd like that, but doesn't matter. This is a neat little object, and again, you can use it simply as a mixer, or you can start playing with the clipping and signal ramp amplification and so on. So another nice little unit from Frequency Central, a really quick build. I think you'll have fun with it as a mixer, which you always need, or if you want to experiment sonically with it. I didn't even touch the higher voltage areas there because I don't have anything to go into that. But that's the unit. I hope you enjoyed the video.